Hi and hello, welcome to online biology classes because of Ideal Others Educational Institution and your. I am Sadish Kumar going to be take down the class 10th standard science unit number 17 reproduction in plants and animals. So last class we are seen about various types of reproduction method in the plants and animals. So from the yesterday video we are going to be seen about the plants which is consist of three type of reproduction. So number one is called vegetative method of reproduction, and number two is called asexual method of reproduction, and number three is called a sexual method of reproduction. And we are elaborately seen about the two different types. One is called vegetative propagation, another one is called asexual reproduction from the last class. So today we are going to be seen about sexual reproduction in the plant. So the sexual reproduction which is available in almost of all types of organism except primitive type of organism, the gymnosperm and angiospermic organism, which was done by the sexual method of reproduction. Because of the reason they are called and flowering plants. The sex organs of the plant are called and flowers. The flowers are two type. One is called an unisexual flower and another one is called bisexual flower. If it is unisexual flower, that means the flower which consists of either male or female character, that is called unisexual flower. Then bisexual flower, that means the plant which consists of both sexes, or the flower which consists of both sexes in the same flower is called bisexual flower. Let us study about the reproduction, sexual reproduction in the plants. Sexual reproduction is the process in the two gamete. One is called male gamete, another one is called female gamete. The male gamete we are called upon anther, or they are produced by the pollen grains in the form of dust particles, and the female gamete in the form of ovary or pistil. They consist of three parts: ovary, style, and stigma, are fused to produce the offspring their own kind. That means the fusion of male and female gamete, the haploid number of cells are fused together and they are converted into in the form of diploid cell. 2n is called offspring, which is produced their own kind. In such cases, the both sexes, the male and female, the sex organs are needed to produce gametes. That means the organism, the flower which need anther and ovary. The anther which is produced by the androecium, which is produced by the anther or pollen grain. The ovary is produced by the ovules. And you have already learned that a flower is a reproductive organ for the flowering plants, because from 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th standard we are seen about the flower is a reproductive organ. And to understand this further we need the study about the structure of flower. So the parts of the typical flower, the flower which consists of four important parts. One is called calyx, and number two is called corolla, and number three is called an androecium, and number four is called gynoecium. The flower is a modified shoot, is limited growth to carry out the sexual reproduction, so which is in the form of modified sex organ and which is carried by the sexual reproduction in the flowering plants. A flower consists of four whorls because of the four parts, main parts: androecium, gynoecium, calyx and corolla. The calyx is a green color which is embedded with the plant, and corolla, it is in the form of petals which is in the form of colorful attraction. And androecium and gynoecium we know very well, these are the essential whorls which is carried by the reproduction in the flowering plants. And we can see about the structure of identified flower. The flower which consists of four parts: the green color structure, that is called sepals or calyx; the colorful substance, that is called corolla or petals; then the dot like structure, that is called stamen or androecium; then the large one, that is a pistil in the form of gynoecium. And the calyx is consisting of sepal. I already told you calyx is a sepal, and corolla is consisting of petals. Androecium consists of stamen, they are produced by the male gamete, and gynoecium or pistil, it is consisting of carpels. It may be asked from the 1 mark question. The carpels is otherwise called an gynoecium. They are consist of a pistil. The pistil which consists of three major parts. One is called ovary, style and stigma. The three consisting parts is called an pistil. Then the androecium, which consists of two parts. One is called stamen and another one is called filament. And this is the another one diagrammatic representation of the hibiscus, so which is explained with the various parts. The upper region we are seeing about the stigma, and the tube like structure is called style, the ball like structure is called an stamen, the colorful substance is called petals, and green color substance is called sepal. The center covered oval shape, that is called an ovary, they are consist of small dot like structure, that is called ovule. We are cut the chili, or we are cut down this brinjal, or we are cut down this lady's finger, we are seeing the seed, that is called an ovules. And the two outermost walls, that is called calyx and corolla, are non-essential or accessory walls. They do not directly take part in the reproduction. So we are seeing that brinjal. So what it will be happen, what it will be happen, the calyx is permanently placed on this the plant. That means they are not directly involved for any type of reproduction, and they are support with the reproduction. So it is called non-essential parts or non-essential walls or accessory part of the plant. They may be asked from the one mark question, which is the accessory part of the plant. That means we are write down calyx and corolla. And next one, the other two words, the androecium and gynoecium, are known as the essential words because both take part directly in the reproduction. Because of the reason, the androecium, which is produced by the male gamete, and by the same time the gynoecium is produced by the female gamete. Then we can see about the structural representation of androecium, which is a book back question. Then androecium is a male part of the flower. I already told you it is a male part of the flower. It is composed of, that means it is get together into stamen. Each stamen is consist of stalk is called a filament. That is a small tube like structure which is penetrate with the staminal tube is called a stalk. Then the filament, the small bag like structure is called anther. The upper region they are consist of small bag like structure. The structure is called an anther. Then this is the diagrammatic representation. We are seeing about what is a filament and what is stamen. So the tube like structure, green color structure is called a filament. Then yellow color substance is called an anther. Then we can see about the pollen grains. So pollen grains, each and every type of anther which is produced by large quantity of pollen grains. So they are maybe in the form of 100, they may be in the form of 10, they may be in the form of 1000. It is in the form of dust particles which is easily flow on this air and which is attached with some other plant. The pollen grains are usually the spherical shape. Underline the word. This is a one mark question. It has the two layered wall. So outer wall and inner wall. The hard outer layer is known as the exine. So it is a very hard wall. It cannot be easily degraded. It has a prominent aperture is called germ pore. They consist of some minute opening. The opening is called a germ pore. The inner thin layer is called intine. The inner layer is called intine. It is in the form of soft and flexible in nature. So let us know about this pollen grain. The pollen grain which consists of two parts, the outer layer and the inner layer. Outer layer is called an exine and inner layer is called intine. And this is the diagrammatic representation. It may be asked from the 2 mark question, book back question. The exine is outermost layer and the intine is the innermost layer. The pollen grain which consists of two type of cell. One is called vegetative cell, another one is called generative cell. The vegetative cells are developed with the body cell, and this generative cell which is done in the form of reproductive process or generative cell. We are commonly called as generative cell. This is a structural representation. The second diagram, it is a structural representation of the pollen grain, how it was developed. And next one, it is a thin and continuous layer made up of the cellulose and pectin. So all the plant parts, they are consist of cellulose and pectin. By the same time, the pollen grain also consists of cellulose and pectin. A mature pollen grain consists of two cells. I already told you two type of cell. One is called vegetative cell and another one is called generative cell, which is done in the separate process. They are not done in the common function. The two cells consist of two different types of function. And the vegetative cells consist of large nucleus. One more question. The vegetative cell which consists of large nucleus. The generative cells divides mitotically form a two male gamete. I already told you the generative cell which is involved in the reproduction process. A single cell which is undergo for mitotic cell division. The cell they are divided into two equal half. They are produced by two male gametes. So the two type of male gamete they are involved for the sexual reproduction. The next one we are seeing about the female part of the female reproductive part of the plant, that is a gynoecium. Gynoecium is the female part of the flower and it is made up of carpels. I already told you what is carpels. It is a one more question. The gynoecium which is made up of carpels. Many number of carpels are available inside of the gynoecium. They are consist of three parts. So from the gynoecium I already told you three parts: ovary, style and stigma. They are the ovary which consists of ovules. Inside of the ovary they are consist of large amount of ovules. And this is the diagrammatic representation. We are seeing about the stamen and the filament, the pollen grain, and this is the gynoecium. This is the diagrammatic representation of gynoecium. The gynoecium which consists of small dot like structure. The structure is called ovules. The ovule is otherwise called a female egg cell or egg cell. And the structure of ovule, the main part of the ovule is called the nucleus. The one more question. So all the cell, the main part is the nucleus, then which is enclosed with the two integuments leaving an opening is called micropyle. The ovule which consists of a small opening in the bottom name is called micropyle. Through the micropyle they are done in the process of fertilization. And this is the diagrammatic representation. Book back long answer. A ovule is attached in the ovary. A wall is by the stalk is known as funiculus. So it is a basal region which is attached in the flower. Then selosa is a basal part. The attachment between the thalamus and the flower is called selosa, and it is a basal part of the flower. And the next one, the process of sexual reproduction in the flowering plants, which is involved by the two process. One is called pollination and another one is called fertilization. So the sexual reproduction which consists of two important process. One is called pollination and another one is called fertilization. Pollination is nothing but the transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of the flower. Transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of the flower is called pollination. And fertilization, that means the fusion of male and female gamete. The male gamete and female gamete fuse together and produced with their own offspring. That is called fertilization. So the pollinations are two types. One is called self-pollination and another one is called cross-pollination. The self-pollination, the transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of the same flower. For example, hibiscus. So the male and female are available. The anther transfer the pollen grain from anther to pollen grain transferred into the stigma by means of the same flower is called self-pollination. Cross-pollination, that means the transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of the different plant of the same species. Same species means same plant or same type of plant. For example, one plant, for example hibiscus or banana or coconut, from the coconut tree to the pollen grains are transferred with another coconut tree. That is called cross-pollination. And the pollination, I already told you, the diagrammatic representations are explained very clearly. The transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of the flower is called pollination. Only the pollen grains are transferred, the anther is not transferred, the pistil is not transferred, only the male gamete, the pollen grain, which is reach on into the female gamete. And the importance of pollination. Why the pollination is going on? What is the role of pollination? The result in the fertilization which lead to formation of fruit and seeds. Without fertilization, exception of the parthenocarpic fruit. So we are already seen from the unit number 16. Without parthenocarpic fruit, except parthenocarpic fruit, all other fruit and seeds they are formed by the help of fertilization. and the process of pollination. And the new varieties of plants are formed through the new combination of gene. In case of cross pollination, we are seeing the different types of brinjal, different types of lady's finger, different types of coconut, different shape and size of apples, bananas, which takes place by means of cross pollination. That means the same genera which can be included with different species, that is called cross pollination, and which is produced with different types of fruits and different types of seeds in the form of same genera. That is called it's a very important of pollination. And the types of pollination, it is explained here, the blue color line, the same is called self pollination, which is transferred with another flower of the same species, that is called cross pollination. And cell pollination, the cell pollination is otherwise called an autogamy. It is an automatic process, voluntary process, so it is called an autogamy. The cell pollination is known as autogamy. One more question: the transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of the same flower is same flower or another flower born from the same plant. The same plant is called self pollination. The best example is a hibiscus flower. And this is the diagrammatic representation. This is a hibiscus flower, the pollen grains which is transferred. So this is the and the stamen. From that stamen itself, this is the pollen grain. The pollen grains are transferred into the stigma of the flower in the same plant or same species or same flower is called self pollination. And advantages, the self pollination, they have some kind of advantages. Number one, it is possible certain bisexual flower. So bisexual flower, that means the male and the female gametes are present in the same flower. Such kind of plant only done in the self pollination. That means then if the plant they cannot presence of male or female gamete, they do not done in the self pollination. Then flowers do not depend upon the agent for pollination, so there is no need for agent, it is automatic process. Then there is no wastage of pollen grain, so the pollen grain is not transferred to much more places, so the wastage of pollen grains are reduced by means of the self pollination. And the self pollination, which consists of some kind of major disadvantages, what are they? The seeds are less in number, they are produced with less number of seed, and the endosperms are minute. We are seeing in the hibiscus, this is a endosperm, it cannot be seen, it is a very minute. Therefore the seeds produced in the weak plant, some of the weak plant, that means they are very small and they are in the tin, that plant also produced by the seeds. The new varieties of plant cannot be produced, that means they are producing with only the homogeneous type of plant, they are not done in the form of a heterogeneous type of plant, which is done by the disadvantages of the self pollination. And now we can see about the cross pollination. The cross pollination, the transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of the another plant of same species. Another plant of the same species. The examples are apple, grapes and palm. They are done in the process of cross pollination. And the advantages of cross pollination: the seeds are produced as a result in the cross pollination, developed and germinating properly and grow into the better plant. Because of the reason, they are already facing a problem for the fertilization and pollination, so they are produced very good quality of seed. Example, the cross pollination leads into the production of new varieties. The same plant we are seen in the brinjal plant, some type they are produced, some of the branches are produced by the violet color brinjal, and some of the types their branches are produced by the green color brinjal, and some of them they are violet and white color brinjals. So these are the advantages of the cross pollination. And number two, more viable seeds are produced. This is the cross pollination diagrammatic representation. The seeds are more viable, they are produced by the 10 seeds, the 10 seeds are viable, they are produced a new plantlet. And disadvantages of cross pollination: the pollination may fail due to the distance barrier. That means the male plant is located here and the female plant is located very long distance. That means the pollination cannot be take place. More wastage of pollen grain by means of wind, by means of water, by means of insect. So some of the pollen grains are lost. Then it may introduce some unwanted characters. So some of the plant, we are seeing the brinjal plant, so they are produced by the small tons. So this is the unwanted character which is exposed by the cross pollination. The flowers are depend upon the external agencies for pollination. That means the plants recovered some of the external, the plants which is recovered some of the external barrier which is done in the cross pollination. And the agents for cross pollination: in order to bring about the cross pollination, it is necessary that pollen should be carried from one flower to another flower in the different plant. So they need some of the agents, and this takes place through this animal, insect, wind and water. So these are some example of sexual pollination plant. And the pollination by wind: so first one, pollination by wind, which is called an anemophily. Anemophily, the transfer of pollen grain, so that is called phylly. It anemophilous flower produced enormous amount of pollen grain. So they are produced large quantity of pollen grain. The best example is a tridox tatapu. So they are produced by large quantity of pollen grain. They are easily fly over the wind. They consist of a wings and a feathery stigma. By means of all these substance, it was fly over the wind. And this is the diagrammatic representation and example of the anemophilous flower. The pollen grains are small, smooth, dry and lightweight. So it is a very small and dry. That's why it was flying, and it's a lightweight. The pollen such as thus bowl a distance more than 1,000 kilometers. Some of the pollen grains are very dust particles. Due to the heavy wind, it was transferred around 1,000 kilometers. Then the stigmas are comparatively large and producing under something hairy to drop the pollen grains. Example, grasses and some of the catki plant. So that is which can be done in the process of sexual method of reproduction with the help of the wind. And next one, we are seeing about pollination by the insect, by means of insect. The studying of insect is called entomology. So the process is called entomophily. Then most of the insects such as honeybees and flies, they are called an entomophily. They are attracted by the insect. These flowers are brightly colored and they smell and nectar. So we are seeing the butterfly, we are seeing the honeybees. They are roaming around the flower because of the reason they are consist of a colorful petals and they have the honey and the sweet smell. Because of all these reasons, the insect are attracted by the plants or flower. Through the means of the legs and wings, the pollen grains are carried from one plant to another plant. And the pollen grains are larger in size and exines is pitted and spiny. So some of them are pitted, that means a pasty like substance, and spiny, it is in the form of some kind of rough particle which is attached, and so they can absorb firely in this sticky stigma. Sticky stigma means pasty substance. Then approximately 80% of the pollination done by the insect which is carried by the honeybee. So the largest pollinating agent, that is called honeybee. Without pollination we cannot be imaginate the pollination process. Without honeybee we cannot be imaginate the pollination process. So the honeybee which is play the vital role for 80% of the pollination. And this is the diagrammatic representation of the honeybee. And third one, the pollination by the water. So that is called, studying of water is called hydrology. So that is called an hydrophily, which is takes place in the aquatic plant. That means the organism which is living in the water body, they are called an aquatic plants. The pollen grains are produced by the large number. They are produced by large quantity of pollen grains. The pollen grains are float on the surface of water till they land in the stigma of the female flower. Example, hydrilla and Wallisneria. So some of the flow or run flow of the water by means of runaway which is produced and which is spread over the another plant, and they are floated by up to the time of landing on the stigma of the female flower. Example, hydrilla and Wallisneria. And this is the example of the lotus which also done by means of the aquatic surface. And third one, pollination by the animals. We know very well the pollination takes place with the help of animal is called zoophily. And the flower is such as the plant attracted by the animals, the bright color, size and scent. They are called, example, the sunbird is pollinate the flower by the canna and cadoli, etc. And squirrels also pollinate the flower of the silk cotton trees, which is play the vital role for the pollination process. So this is the diagrammatic representation, the birds and the squirrel which is transfer the pollen grain. And the important process of the we are seeing about. So now the plants are get ready for fertilization. First one, the plants are produced, the male gamete and female gamete. Second process, the male gametes are transferred into the female gamete, that is called pollination. The third process, that is called fertilization. The pollen grains are reach in this right stigma and begin the germinate. So they are placed on the particular exact place of the stigma, then only it starts germinate. So this is the diagrammatic representation. The stigma is placed on the pollen grains are placed on the stigma. Then from that itself they are produced by the small tube is called pollen tube, and the pollen tube itself they reach on with the sperm nuclei which is end with the ovule. Then they are start the polar nuclei and developed into the zygote. The zygote is developed into the endosperm. The endosperm is developed into the embryo. The embryo is converted into seed. The seed is become into the seedling. It is in the form of cyclic process. And the pollen grains are form a small tube-like structure is called pollen tube, which emerges into the germ pore. So the pollen tube is called germ pore. By means of the germ pore only, the male gamete are enter. It contains a pollen move into the tube. So this is the diagrammatic representation which is given on your textbook. And the pollen tube grow through this tissue of the stigma and style and finally reaches into the ovule through the micropyle. So micropyle is nothing but it is a small opening which is available on the basal side of the ovule. Through the help of the micropyle, the water, air and the male gametes are entered. The vegetative cells are degenerate and generative cells form a two sperms, that is already we are seeing the generative cells are produced by two male gamete. The tip of the pollen tube is burst and two sperm cells are entered into the embryo sac. So the pollen tube itself formation of two male gamete and the male gametes are blast out and open through the embryo sac. The one sperm is fused with the egg syngamy and forms a diploid zygote. Male is a single N, so haploid. Female also single N, haploid. Both are fused together. Now the two nucleus are available, so it is called a diploid or in the form of 2N. And the another form is fused with the secondary nucleus, that is called a triple fusion to form the primary endosperm, the nucleus with the triploid in nature. Triploid means 3. And this is the double fertilization fused with the endosperm with 3N and zygote with 2N. And since the two type of fusion of syngamy and triple fusion takes place, the embryo sac process to termed into the double fertilization. The involvement of two type of fertilization, one is called syngamy and another one is called triple fusion, that is called an double fertilization. After the triple fusion, the primary endosperm and nucleus developed into the endosperm. So the endosperm nucleus is developed into an endosperm. Endosperm provides a food to the embryo. So the endosperm, so we are seeing that the coconut, the white color substance, that is called the endosperm, which is provide the nutrient to the young cell, that is called embryo. Later, synergist and antipodal cells are degenerated. So the basal side of the cells are degenerated, which is developed into the seed. Then significance of fertilization. What are the significance? What are the importance of fertilization? It stimulates the ovary developed into the fruit. The ovary which is converted into seed or fruit. With the help of development of new character form two different individual. So new character, 50% of character from father side and 50% of character from the mother side. So they are consist of two different characters and merged with two new individual, that is called new individual or offspring. Then the last and important parts of the sexual reproduction, the ovule, the post-fertilization changes, the ovule developed into the seed, the ovule, the dot substance which is developed into the seed, the integument of the ovule developed into the seed coat, the integument which is outer layer, they are developed into the seed coat, the ovary enlarge and develop into the fruit. Finally, the ovary is little bit it is enlarged and developed into the fruit. Again, I told you, ovules are developed into the seed. So seed is available inside and the seed is covered with the seed coat. Then the seed coat is fully covered with the fruit. So first to last one, fruit. Then when we are open the fruit, presence of seed, then we are open the seed, presence of ovule. And the seed contains a future plant or embryo which developed into the seedling under appropriate condition. Again, so we are seeing that this is the mango season. The mango plantlet or seedling, they are developed into, slowly it was developed, they are developed into the mango tree. They are produced by the flowers, and the flower which is done the pollination. After the pollination, they are done the fertilization. The fertilized flower is developed into the embryo and diploid condition, and haploid conditions are converted into diploid condition, and double fertilization and triple fertilization is takes place, and finally they are developed into a fruit. The fruit again, it is fall down in the soil, then it is degraded the outer layer, again it was developed into the mango plantlet. It is a cyclic process. So this is the diagrammatic representation of post-fertilization changes, how the seed coat and ovules are converted into a fruit. It is a diagrammatic representation. And thank you very much to participating this class. So next class we are seeing about sexual reproduction in the human. Thank you very much. I am Sadish Kumar.